On this episode of 13th and Park, we welcome House Armed Services Chairman Mike Rogers, the straight-talking force at the helm of America's defense strategy, who's driving a new National Defense Authorization Act, funding pay raises for our troops, investing in next-gen weapons, and utilizing AI to enhance our national security by preparing for the wars of tomorrow. Candid, influential, and always plugged into the front lines of policy, Chairman Rogers gives us an insider's view you won't find anywhere else. From Ballard Studios in the nation's capital, it's 13th and Park.
The hard things that are necessary, we either do it or we'll pay the price down the road.
That often is missing in politics.
We have to solve everything.
It's a nightmare.
You and I can differ, but that doesn't mean you and I cannot be friends.
I have faith in the American people.
Those are the facts.
The Illuminati, right there. Aliens could have invaded and nothing would surprise me at this point.
We went from North Korea to M&M. That's a lot, man.
What's in this tea?
Congressman, great to have you on the show today. I can imagine how busy your schedule is right now. Is obviously the National Defense Authorization Act is such a big thing. Why is this year's version of the NDAA more important and more critical than past years? What about it is addressing things that have maybe become more front and center in terms of the challenges, even the threats facing America?
The thing that I think the bill addresses most prominently and is a really, really big problem is we're at a pivotal point where our Defense Department has got to be able to move faster to incorporate new technologies into its weapon systems. And it's so slow and antiquated and cumbersome and not structured for acquisition of the weapons that we're going to have for future conflicts. Wars in the future are not going to be fought anything like wars in the past when we're involved. Mm-hmm. And so we've really got to get after that. But, there's other things, too. We're at the lowest level of defense spending since before World War II. I mean, it's just really a big problem. But the thing that we most have to get after quickly is taking the acquisition system in that organization, which is the Pentagon, the largest organization on the planet, and try to bring it into the 21st century in an effective means so we can incorporate these new technologies into our weapon systems in the future.
Does it help, Chairman, to have a president who I refer to as built for speed? I mean, let's go get him, right? Do you think that having a president like that and with your committee and your leadership, we can actually start to press the pedal and really get this thing moving faster than ever before?
The main reason why I think it's helpful with him in particular is he is literally a change agent. He has no problem with change. In fact, he expects it. He embraces it. That is the antithesis of the Department of Defense. Now we call it the Department of War. They are culturally indoctrinated to not evolve and change.
You've said that we need a ready, capable, and lethal fighting force. How close are we to having what we need on that front? And what else is the NDAA going to do to put us in better fighting shape?
We have to prepare for future conflicts that are evolving very rapidly, and we are not structured to get after that. Anybody who's been paying attention to weapon systems that we've been developing in recent years can see we are moving to unmanned platforms. And if you see those being used in Ukraine, they're evolving very quickly.
Yeah.
We've got to be able to adapt and move more quickly to embrace that component. But also, because they're unmanned, artificial intelligence is going to play a much, much bigger role in these systems in the future. Yeah. We are not prepared right now to compete at the same pace as China, which is the competitor that we have to pace with. And it requires the tech world to be involved. And that's what I'm excited about. And that's what we really start addressing in this bill. And this is dramatic acquisition reform. Up until about 10 or 12 years ago, Silicon Valley, the tech world, wanted nothing to do with the Defense Department. But that all started changing a few years ago. A couple of things. Companies like Anduril have demonstrated that you can work with the Defense Department in a successful fashion, and other companies like Palantir. And so the tech world has really got energized about working in partnership with us, but we have to rise to the moment and meet their interests with opportunity. And that's what we're trying to do, because if we can combine with them, we can prepare for anybody, for any threat, and make sure that we remain ahead of our adversaries in any conflict in the future.
So let me ask you this, Chairman. For you to approach this new world, you have to have kind of first that game plan before you can start to tactically decide, okay, does this weapon system make sense? Does this kind of deployment make sense? When do we have to bring this kind of technology online? If you don't have that kind of macro vision, you can't possibly be doing anything other than playing with pieces on the chessboard and not necessarily to a position to win.
That's exactly right. And the first thing that you've got to do, just like any coach has to do, is be honest with yourself about what you can and cannot do, what your shortcomings are in particular. So that's what we're doing right now. We're trying to assess what our shortcomings are. We've done that. And it's not just the acquisition system. That is the biggest problem we have. As I said earlier, we are spending at the lowest level as a percentage of our GDP. The things that we've got to do are not only going to require a different structure for acquisition, it's going to require a lot more funding. It's just a fact. You cannot get after the problems we have to get after at the spending levels that we have right now.
You hear the expression next generation weapons. How much of that is in play, Chairman, and how much of what is ahead is not simply replacing aging equipment and infrastructure? It's about developing new technology and new ways to engage that are more powerful, if necessary, more lethal and effective.
The triad, for those people who aren't familiar with it, is our nuclear weapon systems, and it has three legs. It has the ground-based, the intercontinental ballistic missiles that are in silos. You have the bombers, and then we have the nuclear submarines. The leg that is the most essential to maintain is the nuclear submarines because they're so hard to detect.
Yeah.
Two legs of the triad, both the ICBMs and the nuclear submarines, have to be replaced with newer versions. ICBMs, or the Minuteman weapon systems, are 1970s technology.
Wow.
That has to be replaced with a new Sentinel version. It is enormously expensive, and we do not have the money in our current budget to do that. And nuclear submarines are the same thing. They're just enormously expensive, but we have to have them. Those don't really fit so much into the new technologies that you and I have been talking about so far. The passing game is what you were referring to a little while ago. And that's when we're going to be using cyber and space and unmanned artificial intelligence with our unmanned platforms. That's the new technology that we've got to get after. But you got to do your block and tackling first. And that's what we're really focused on with this $150 billion in new money that we got from the reconciliation bill starts to help get after those. And I haven't even mentioned the thing that President Trump has recently put on the table that we really need and nobody talked about before him because we couldn't even think about paying for it. And that's Golden Dome, which is basically a layered air defense system. Israel has seen work so effectively for them. The lowest level of it's called Iron Dome, and then there's David Sling and Arrow 2 and 3, which are the other layers. And he just branded it Golden Dome because he likes gold. But it is absolutely an essential air defense system that we have been needing for a while. We just haven't talked about it because we couldn't even think about paying for it. And you may say, well, why do we need it? We didn't know about it. Well, hypersonics and cruise missiles have made these oceans on each side of us no longer the security blanket they once were. And we have got to adapt. Golden Dome, or this layered air defense system, which starts in space, by the way, and comes down, is going to get after that, protect us, but it is going to be a very expensive endeavor. They're talking 175 to 250 billion. It'll cost 500 billion for sure.
But it would be effective.
Oh, yeah, it'd be effective, and it would be a game changer as far as making those weapon systems obsolete against us.
So let me ask you, there's a lot of talk, of course, in the country beyond just defense about control of critical national assets. And this gets into the whole thing about supply chains, defense supply chains in this situation. Are you concerned about that? And if so, what more can we do to bring more of the manufacture of our national defense onto domestic shores?
You're exactly right. We've got to repatriate manufacturing from China. The minerals and the elements that we need to produce chips, pharmaceuticals, weapons, we have become incredibly dependent on China. And China has been playing the long game for a while. They have been investing in strategic parts of the globe, Africa in particular, the Middle East, solely because they wanted to get control of these minerals and elements that they know are so essential to the global enterprise. And we have just not. We have been completely asleep at the wheel, just as other Western countries have been. But we have got to wake up now. President Trump is all into this. They're working a little bit below the radar on this more than most people realize. to get us in a better position. But we have to do a couple of things. One is we have got to find these and start producing them ourselves.
Yep.
And then we've got to start processing again. We've shipped all that out of our country.
Yep.
We have got to do it. There are responsible ways to do it. It's not necessarily bad for the environment if we do it in a responsible fashion. And we can share it with other countries in our hemisphere and that are our allies. But we've got to get that out of Chinese control because it is a knee buckler.
One thing I really want to applaud you and everybody that have been working on the NDAA about is your recognition of the men and women who serve in the military. And in this bill, there is a significant pay raise for the troops. And there are also other benefits having to do with housing and other things that acknowledge that this is at the heart of any national defense strategy.
Last year was a real wake-up call for us. We had, for the first time, reached a point where our recruiting was at dangerously low levels, and we were having a problem on two fronts. The main sources of people coming into the military historically been Southerners and children of career military families. The Southerners had stopped joining the military at the same rate because they were turned off by the social DEI policies, the social policies in the department. The South is just a very culturally conservative part of our country. But what really got my attention was, for the first time in my lifetime, career military families were not recommending a career in the service to their children. And that's because they were not being valued. They were not being paid well. They were not providing good services. I want people in the military to feel appreciated by the benefits package they're getting from the government. So much so that it's my hope that the families of our service members don't want to get out because they feel like they can't ever get it this good in the private sector. That's my goal, because that's the way we're going to keep the kind of people we need for the future. So we've got to be able to pay them well if we want to keep them.
You grew up in a small textile village. As you are engaged in very, very important and high-level negotiations on the national defense of this country, how much do you draw on the memories of your childhood, the way you were raised? How much does that come into play as you have to make some very, very difficult decisions that have such weight for the rest of us?
I think that I'm guided by that, just like everybody is, by the way they were brought up and the values that they had instilled in them by their families and their communities. And my district is very representative of what you just described. Most of the people in my district have a very similar story. I represent a poor rural congressional district, which is one of the reasons why I think about things like how the families view how they're treated by the military as to whether or not they want to stay or not, because they have options. But I also think about how wonderful a country we have, where somebody like me, who grew up in a family where neither of his parents ever finished high school, was able to become well-educated, prosperous, and successful. Only in America can a story like this happen. And we got all kinds of problems, but there's not another country on the planet that wouldn't swap problems with us. We are blessed by God to live in this country, and we're going to be fine because we're going to figure it out and get there.
What you do every day, Chairman, is so vital. Probably a lot of that goes very quietly and unsung in terms of your efforts. But thank you very much on behalf of everyone in America for getting us ready and preparing us to continue to be the greatest nation on earth.
Thank you. I appreciate being with you.
Take care of yourself.